Hi, and welcome back to our final segment of Asset Maintenance and Reserves. Kate, just want to ask you about the sealed bid process. It's not very clear what that means.
The sealed bid process is the process wherein vendors supply you with sealed bids. They'll usually give them to the community manager, and then you open them at a properly noticed board meeting. This can be a little confusing for new board members, especially because they think you're just going to get the documentation, take a look at it, make a decision, and go. The problem is you don't get the documentation until your board meeting, so you really haven't had a chance to take a look at it, to compare the bids, to make sure it matches your RFP. So a lot of times what boards will do is one of two things. They'll either open it at the meeting, and then they'll postpone it until the next meeting, or maybe 2 meetings. That might work for a small project. But what if you only have quarterly meetings? Then you could actually put a project out 6 to 8 months by simply getting the sealed bids, opening them, and putting the project aside for now. The other option is to actually have a bid opening meeting. So when you send out the notice for your regular board meeting, you could also include a notice for a bid opening meeting that takes place about 10 days ahead of time. That way you could have one item on the agenda, and that is to open the bids. You open the bid, you can talk about it with the homeowners, you can give that information to community manager, and they can create some sort of analysis. So you're going to see, why is this vendor only bidding $50,000 and that one's bidding $121,000? Then by the time you get to your regular board meeting, you've had a chance to really look through this documentation, and you can keep a project on track that way. One of the major things that you're going to be looking at is, are these bids conforming to the RFP? What if, like we were talking about paint just a few minutes ago, what if one vendor has one paint color, but you've actually requested beige, they've given you brown? That can be a problem, especially if your documentation specifically says you have to have a certain color paint. Once you get these apples to apples comparison, you can, in the RFP, you can also make sure,
bananas.
or banana to banana. You can also make sure that your vendors have the right licenses. Are they giving you the same warranties? And you get all of that documented out.
This is the kind of stuff you can't do in the meeting. It just takes too long.
It really does.
So you have to do a separate meeting to open the bids, and then offline, someone is going to do all this work.
The other issue is that some people automatically want to go to the low bid no matter what. But sometimes a low bid isn't what you're going to need. For example, go back to the perimeter wall. I keep talking about that because it's obviously on my mind. If we'd gone with the low-end bid, $50,000, and they started the project and suddenly they realize those footings are on the city sidewalk, first of all, the project freezes, and then you get that fabulous change order that comes through, and suddenly your $50,000 project becomes a $150,000 project, and that was definitely not something you budgeted for. So taking the time with these sealed bids to properly analyze them can make a big difference. And guess what? You should be including this process for the sealed bids in your timeline as you're going forward.
Otherwise, you'll be behind schedule.
You got it.
Okay. Well, the other aspect of all this is now you've gotten the proposals back, you've analyzed them, you think you like this vendor the best, the board has voted on it. Now you get the contract.
Well, I'm not a lawyer though, so I'm not really comfortable with contracts. What am I supposed to do once I get that back?
Well, the contract may or may not comply with what you asked for in the request for proposal, which would be a problem.
Okay, wait a minute. You mean that a vendor would give me a contract that didn't follow what they proposed?
Yeah, it
I would just assume that it would be the same.
Well, assuming, as we all know, can be a problem. So someone knowledgeable enough has to go through that contract and say, yep, everything we put in our request for proposal is in there, plus a couple more things maybe, or, well, they changed one thing because what we had in our request for proposal actually wouldn't work. That happens. But is this contract something you're going to sign? And there's the legal aspects of this. Does it comply with your requirements? Is the warranty what you required? Does it have special waivers in the warranty that maybe you can have a warranty but it doesn't cover anything. You know, that happens. What are the payment terms? Are those payment terms, you know, all the money up front and nothing, and you don't pay any more until the end, you know? Will you find yourself in a financial situation where the vendor has very little incentive to continue the project? You've already given them all the money. So those kind of things are things you need to make sure the contract includes. Talking with your attorney, having your attorney review that contract. I have an attorney friend who says, you know, we always get paid. You can pay me now, a little, or you can pay me a whole lot later. And it's in the interest of the community to make sure that you're protected, that you've had the attorney look at it, it's a good contract, or maybe some changes need to be made. And then you know that you're not going to find yourself in a situation where you signed a contract you shouldn't have signed. And as you say, you want to avoid change orders. If that contract doesn't include everything in there, you're going to have to say, oh my gosh, we have to do this now because it wasn't in the contract. You can be mad at the vendor for not including it in the contract, but you still got to get it done. So, okay, we've gotten the contract, we're going to start this project. What about communicating with the owners? What has to be done there? Some things need to be communicated because the homeowners are affected by these things, right?
I don't think you can over-communicate with the homeowners. I know that they sometimes get annoyed by all of the communications they receive, but everyone consumes information differently. Some people are quick on their email, other people want that document in their hand. You've got newsletters, you've got door hangers, you've got email blasts, you've got text message alerts. Anything that you can use to communicate a situation to the homeowners is something you've got to take advantage of. And there are certain things that they're going to want to know. You have a choice. Either you communicate it to them, or someone else is going to create a fabulous story about it, and that's the communication that's going to rage
It'll
around
be on
your
Facebook.
complex. Oh, yeah. So it's much better if you, as a board and as a project committee, as you control those communications. You're going to want to tell them, are they going to have to vote on a special assessment? I always hear this, when in reality, we've had the money in the reserves for the project, so we tell them up front, it's being paid for out of the reserves. Are they going to be invited to be part of the project? Like with our clubhouse project, we invited them in and got their recommendations on how they wanted to redo certain sections of the clubhouse. Are they going to be inconvenienced during the project? Are they going to have to park somewhere else? And if you've got someone who has, for example, a disabled parking space, what accommodation are you going to need to make? You want to be the one to tell them, here are your options, instead of having them file a complaint somewhere because you're not meeting the ADA requirements. It's always important to let them know if they're going to have to change where they come in, if you're slurring a street, how long they need to stay off of it. And like I said before, where is this money coming from? Because you don't want anyone assuming that a big project means there's going to be a big check that they're going to have to write farther down the road. You've got to tell them when it starts, what the middle is, and when they can expect to see the completion. And if there are changes going on during it, remember those text blasts, email blasts, a notice on the notice board. These are the ways you're going to keep them happy. And if they're happy, your community manager's happy, and the board's happy, and even the vendors are happy.
Well, you know, there's an old saying, no one likes change unless it's their idea.
Nope.
So if you, as you say, get them involved in the process, they'll feel like they're connected to this idea and won't be, they'll know what to expect. If you communicate with them, they're going to know what to expect. They're not going to be surprised that they're going to have to park over there for a couple days. They're not going to be surprised that the clubhouse is going to be closed for renovations for a certain period. The pool is going to be out for an extra week. We're going to be a little bit late opening it up this season. If they know in advance, they're not going to be suddenly sending emails around to each other saying, what happened? Why isn't the pool working? So you're right, communication is really important.
The completion of the project is also something that you need to communicate just as much as you need to communicate all these other aspects, because the homeowners are going to want to know, was it checked out? Who signed off on it? Are there warranties? What happens as we go farther down the road?
It's their money.
It's their money, and it's critical that certain things take place. You need to tell those homeowners, we are having a general contractor come in to inspect the work. We are making certain we have all the warranty documentation on file. And we are making certain that that vendor is invested enough in our community that they're going to be willing to follow up on that warranty, and you're not going to have issues as you go down further into the years. You want to also make certain that you've put that fabulous information on your completed project list and into your maintenance manual, because you go back to where you started. In 5 years, you may need to do some more work on the roofs.
Or somebody else may be looking at this.
Exactly. Somebody may want to know exactly what kind of paint was used when they corrected some graffiti. The reality is that you always wind up going right back to the start. Your annual budget, your reserve study, your project list, and your manual.
Well, you know, I think, Kate, I think our work is done here.
I hope so.
I would like to thank all of you for your attention, and we hope that this presentation was useful to you and your community, and will be useful. And that if you have questions or need other information or other presentations on other topics, please visit our website and download another one of these videos. Thank you.